So just to give you context, for the time being, I'm going to be Clarence Rosario, who essentially heads the product division of BI and analytics. So I'm just playing with this because they didn't change my photo. I'm upset, I'm offended, but it's all on the team. But anyway, this gentleman leads the product. He's been with the product since 2009. So in this session, it's like I said, it's going to be a summary of what we have seen in the last 2 days and probably what not to do when you're using Zoho Analytics. So you've seen the fact that this is an end-to-end platform, right? From data integration, data management, analysis, visualization, and having the ability to put it in different forms to the consumers, be it inviting them to the analytics platform to consume the data, making it available in CRM systems directly or your help desk system, or if you want to share it through internal portals and so on. We also saw that how the platform has got a diverse deployment option. Whether you consume this in Zoho's cloud infrastructure, whether you want to take it on private clouds, or if you want to use it on-prem. And we also want to quickly talk about, during the course of the presentation, we'll talk about some of the largest deployments that we have, both on the on-prem side and on the cloud side. And what options do we have if you go beyond a certain threshold in terms of the volume of data that you're dealing with? And then what are the other things that you can do if you need help from our partners like Natalie, or if you want to reach out to Zoho for professional services? We have the ability to deliver all of these. So I just want to talk about those, kind of wrap up the whole thing. The most important thing, you will need a strong data integration and a data quality foundation. Pipelines, this is going to be crucial. The ability to set up visual pipelines, which is essentially a new feature that we launched a couple of months ago, is critical so that you know where the data is coming from, where is it plumbed into, and having a full view and the ability to orchestrate the movement of data from source to destinations. Focus on data quality. You saw how you have the ability to do all these things using point and click functions, the contextual integration of OpenAI to interact with the system to cleanse the data, to prepare the data, and create the models. Once you take it past the data quality and control stage, it's about creating the metrics you want to make available for your consumers. You don't have to put raw data into their hands. You can create things like, hey, what's the total time to close a deal? Things like metrics such as what's the ROI and so on and so forth. Instead of having them calculate all of these things, create the store of metric, put the metrics in their hands. One of the things that you will constantly see is the ability to create more models in Zoho Analytics using query table. How many of you are, obviously, the team has taken you through this. Who uses query table in your installation? So one thing that I will talk about query table, while it's extremely powerful, it can also be an Achilles heel. Without the right SQL, without having the right guardrail and all the kind of expertise that you would need to create this can essentially slow down your system if the model of the query is not right. So when you use SQL query, be very careful. And then as far as possible, try to avoid it. If you can use the connection, the joins, and the suggestions that we make out of the box, try to use them as much as possible. And try to avoid the use of SQL queries, because what we have seen in most of the installations is, while this gives you a lot of flexibility, it also comes with its own set of baggage where it really brings down the performance of the system. So this was about a quick overview from data management, integration, and to models and so on. So once you have all of these in place, how do you scale? So I wanted to talk about some of the inbuilt features or capabilities of the system. We are already optimized as an analytics platform where we have columnar databases behind the scene. We even have the ability to run, in certain cases, these databases on GPUs and so on for better scale and better speed. And there is caching at all levels. There is client-side caching, there is server-side caching based on how frequently a report has been accessed within the organization. We index all of those things and help in helping the end user experience. And from a load perspective, if you are an organization that's dealing with more than 250 million rows of data, then we also make a suggestion where we can essentially give you a standalone cluster on which you can run your system. So right now, everybody is multi-tenant, but once you reach this threshold, once we observe, because we get notified when a customer goes beyond a threshold, at those points, we'll reach out to you folks and make the suggestion. Again, it also depends on, it's just not the number of rows, how frequently and how many reports that you have created is being accessed at any given time. 250 million rows of data, let's say 500 users accessing it at any given time, it is going to impact the performance, the end user performance. So we have the ability to allow you to scale where we give you what we call a dedicated cluster. So if you need dedicated clusters, the best thing is to reach out to support@zohoanalytics.com. Or if we do the outreach to you, we will be making the suggestion. Obviously, there is a price consideration here, but if this is going to be a key component of what you need, then we have the ability to deliver that to you. So in terms of the scale, if you're looking at Zoho Analytics on cloud, the largest customer, who is in the supply chain space, has over 2 billion rows of data. That's around about 3 terabytes of data that they are processing in real time. And they have 3,000 plus concurrent users. So again, for this customer, they had to go with the dedicated cluster. Obviously, that's the only choice, but we have been able to scale. Now, if you look at the on-prem version, round about the same amount of data in terms of the capacity. It's 3 terabytes of data, but they have lower number of users. Obviously, because it's on-prem, they decide what kind of compute that they want to allocate. And again, they started small. They started with probably about 3 million rows of data the first year. And over the course of time, they went up to 3 billion rows of data. We also want to quickly talk about the deployment flexibility that you have. You have the Zoho Cloud, the on-prem. If you want it on public cloud, that's an option, and the private cloud is an option. So when do you need these? Yes, we have a lot of flexibility, but when do you need this? You would typically go for or consider the other kinds of deployments, such as private cloud or public cloud, if you are in certain sectors. If you're government, then you can basically use Zoho Analytics, subscribe to Amazon government cloud, and deploy Zoho Analytics there and start consuming it there. Thereby, you're going to be compliant with the regulation. Healthcare is another place where we have seen a lot of businesses want a lot of healthcare analytics, but they do not want to put their data on cloud. Though, just so you know, all our data centers are HIPAA compliant, but that doesn't cut it. In some cases, they want to go further. They have more stringent regulations. They go there. Finance, a lot of financial and fintech companies, they want to do it on their own cloud or they want to do it on-prem. Defense, no need to state anything further. And then in general, any regulated enterprise would want these options. From a security and governance perspective, we have, again, you probably have seen this. You have seen how you can share and collaborate on the data and the reports and charts, but then we give you a very granular ways to set up access control. You can create groups, you can create users. It doesn't stop there. At every row level, you can set up permissions. For example, you could have all your data, let's take sales data for North, East, West, and Southern region of the United States. But when a salesperson who belongs to the East region accesses the report, they will only be able to see the data pertaining to their location and to their region. So literally, you're taking a column level information and setting up controls dynamically So based on where the user or which salesperson is logging in, depending on their region, you can set the access control. And for example, 3 months later, I start managing the West region. All of a sudden, I can then see the West region data. So you have the ability to dynamically change the access control. So that's a feature that I would want you to focus on every time you put things out for consumption. Think about the access control for everybody who's going to use or consume the report. Admin roles, be very careful when you choose them, simply because there are multiple admin roles. There is like the super admin who can create workspaces and who can create users and so on. But you want to make sure there's also this notion of light users. If you don't want them to access anything more than just the reports and charts, there is a light user licensing option as well. Is that right, Silas? We have light users. So depending on the use case, you don't need to necessarily buy the admin user roles for all your organization. Probably 10 users who probably are going to create reports, charts, create the models, cleanse the data. Think of that like data analysts and admins. But if there's someone who's just going to consume, then think about the light users. Avoid public sharing because we do enable the option to create URLs to access these reports. Be very careful. Even if you want to make them available, ensure that someone who has access to the URL is able to access it only with a username and password. We do give you the ability to make it open, but it's mostly for internal collaboration. Do not keep it open. At the end of the day, you're going to expose the data that you have in the organization. Audit logs and monitoring, we are building a lot more capabilities. At this point, you go into the product, you can look at what a user has accessed, but we're creating a lot more capabilities around that. And in fact, we will also be able to report on that in the form of a dashboard. And I think we launched this recently, right, Silas? So even the access log information is available as a dashboard to the admin users. Quick word. As far as the compliances goes, you can see a lot of them here. So we have HIPAA, we have SOC 1, SOC 2 compliances, and so on. But one thing I want to talk about, this is not specifically for Zoho Analytics. Across the board, while it's not a regulation for us to be GDPR compliant in US and Canada or any other data centers, because of the fact that we run our own data centers, we had to find the lowest common denominator when it comes to privacy policies and security. So we decided to adopt GDPR standards for all our data centers. While in Europe, it's a regulation, it's not a regulation in Canada, in US. However, we follow the exact same protocol and procedures in terms of how we will, react to any specific data leak or so on and so forth. So we have the same process. So all our data centers are technically GDPR compliant. Probably a lot of you have been using our support services. We also have different tiers of support. We have classic, premium, and enterprise options. We have a global network of partners. You saw one of them, and we have someone here. Anybody with a green tag that you've seen in the last 2 days is a Zoho partner who can help you with implementation. And what we also offer, if you're trying the product for the first time, we also offer an onboarding period for you to help you to get familiarized with the product and so on. So we offer that as a part of the sign up. When you sign up, you also get an onboarding service. We have a training and certification program. We were here a couple of months ago, probably earlier last year, where we did a workshop to certify people. So people can come into these workshops and they can get certified on Zoho Analytics. And Zoho, more and more, is also seeing customers who want to work with us to do the implementation. So for Zoho Analytics, we do have expertise within the company to offer professional services.